Hi, it's nice to see you again. Thank you so much for coming along to my channel. It is always a pleasure to interact with you in this capacity and always having this conversation. If this is the first time you are coming to my channel, thank you for coming along, perhaps through Google search or maybe through referral, whatever means that you've already come across to me. It is always a pleasure to have you here. I will highly encourage you to please click that subscribe button down there and click the notification bell so that you wouldn't miss any of my content. Believe me, you're gonna love it. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you. You are all awesome. You guys are doing amazing. Thank you for sharing these and commenting and liking. I so much appreciate you guys. Again, I would also encourage you to please to continue to share, comment, and like so that others can also benefit from these contents as we continue to grow. All right. So again, as I've always been pointing out here that I provide free mentorship and coaching. Let's just say you have done your Scrum training and got certified and you're not yet sure on how to bridge that gap between the job market and what you have already learned, right? So you need someone to hold you by the hand. And that is when you are looking for a coach. There are so many people out there that are also, kind of giving the services, but it has to be paid or subscribed, whatever way it is. I'm not criticizing or I'm not finger pointing at people. All I'm saying is, if you're looking for someone who has real-time experience, who can be able to help you to work at your pace, all you need to do is to reach out. You have my information out there. Either you reach out to me via my email address or connect with me on my Instagram page or even Facebook, whatever way that seems very convenient for you. Please do reach out and let's have a talk. All right, that's sideways. Now let's get into our major conversation for today. Now, a lot of Scrum Masters find it difficult to collaborate really smoothly with the product owner. As a Scrum Master, you need to diversify. And what we're going to talk about today is requirement gathering. Now, how do we gather requirements in Agile, specifically in Scrum? How different is requirement gathering in Waterfall as different from Scrum? As a Scrum Master, it is always very imperative for you to understand how things are done in the old perspective and how it is done in the modern perspective, okay? In other words, how was requirement gathering done using waterfall methodology and how is it done using Scrum as in relation to Agile? So these are the things I wanted to share with you guys today. And if you are a product owner and you're not sure how to gather requirements, how to document them, believe me, today's content is going to be very, very valuable to you. All you need to do is to get your paper and pen and you can be able to work with me for this particular conversation. Again, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment and share so that others can continue to benefit from this. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my board now and we can take a look at this at the same time. So give me one moment as I try to get this information up and running. All right, here you go. So today, like I said, we'll be taking a look at this type of the old ways of gathering requirements as a new way of gathering requirement. The old way in terms of waterfall as the new way in terms of Agile, but very much specifically to Scrum, okay? So now, what is the old way of gathering requirements as in relation to waterfall? We all know that waterfall is such a very stringent and very regimented project management methodology, being that things are always streamlined, right? Things are always so rigid that as soon as one step is taken, it's so difficult to go back that previous step. You need to move forward, right? If you need to take, retrieve or retrofit that previous step, it's going to take you a long time or long process for you to get that done. So how are requirements collected and shared in Waterfall? Now, in Waterfall environments, requirements are collected at its entirety, before things can be shipped to the IT department in terms of to the dev team, all of the requirements must be collected, all of it, It's not, things are not done at incremental level. No, all of it. And in doing so, right, people get frustrated because there is no conversation. The IT departments, the product departments, these are different departments. The business departments, the IT guys, they need to have a conversation, but in Waterfall, such is limited. If you have to, if I may remind you about one of the 12 agile principles talking about the business and the IT must, the business and IT should have a face-to-face conversation. The reason being that the founders of agile realize that there is some sort of gap, communication gap, right, between the IT department and also the business department. So in order to make sure that such breach, such lacuna doesn't really continue, I mean, they had to figure out a way to fill it up. Okay, so in Waterfall, because we understand that Waterfall is such a linear process, in other words, things are like moving in a linear line, right? Requirements, all of it must be known. So because things has to be known in its entirely, it's got to be, there's time wasted, right? It takes a longer time. Not just that people get frustrated, but because the dev team doesn't have that communication with the product team, right? So it is quite so difficult to incorporate any form of change. So what if the dev team wants to make some tweak in there? I mean, that might not be possible because the business or the product department would feel like they have gotten all of the things that they need for the IT to work. But because there's no communication between such two different departments, now it is quite so difficult for them to incorporate change so easily as we have it in Scrum. All right. Now, what about having detailed information? Now, we understand that the market is always changing. What holds water today might not hold water tomorrow. So how would you be able to get all of these fleshed out? Now, that is when having this detailed information comes to surface. So in other words, when it comes to Waterfall, just to summarize, give you a sense of what I've just, fleshed out based on this, Waterfall, is that in Waterfall, and before the requirements can be documented, it has to be known in its entirety, completely, right? And because of the linear process of Waterfall, because of that linear process, right, things takes a long time. Things take a long time. There is no room for any form of change, right? The consequences are higher that the IT department and the business department find it difficult to have that communication in order to be able to ship increments or satisfy the customer or the user. But is that the case when it comes to Agile? That becomes the question. Let's find out. Right? Let's find out. All right, so in Agile is totally the opposite. Now, how do we gather requirements in Agile? Requirements in Agile, specifically in Scrum, are gathered in the form of what is called user stories. User stories are basically the requirements that are written from the perspective of the user. Now, today's conversation is not about how to write a good user story. What are the things that makes up a good user story? I'm assuming you already know what that is, but if you're not sure about what that means, I would encourage you to please do your research. But for today's content is just to give you a sense of how we gather requirements in Scrum. Requirements in Scrum are got form of user stories. And user stories are those requirements, but they are written from the perspective of the user. If the user wants maybe a login detail or through biometrics, whatever feature that the user wants to get in there, then those requirements should be written from the perspective of the user standpoint. Now, these requirements, we don't need to have everything before the IT department can start work. No, that is why Scrum works on iterative nature, incremental nature. That is why we have 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, 3 week sprint, and 4 week sprints. In such a way, if there is some sort of functionality that has not been incorporated, based on the customer's request, then it could go into the next sprint. That is how we gather requirements in Scrum. But in Agile, in Waterfall, I mean to say, there is nothing like that incremental or iterative nature. All things might be known, they should be known before they go into development. But in Scrum, we don't need to have a sense of all of this information at once. Now, I mean, again, there are different ways or different things that go into writing user story in order to make sure that it's properly documented. We want to make sure that there is some sort of it meets the invest criteria, right? It is properly prioritized. Again, this is outside of this today, outside of the scope of today's content, but I'm just giving you a sense of how this information are all fleshed and all incorporated in the user story format. Okay. So that is about today's contents. And these user stories should be small enough that they must be finished up in a sprint. And if you're a Scrum Master and your teams do not finish up their user stories in each sprint, you need to take a step backward and take a look at the size of those user stories. Sometimes, if a user story is so big, that is when it becomes so difficult that your dev team will be able to finish it up. And it is unfortunate that some team members keep transferring or keep moving user stories from one sprint to the other, from one sprint to the other. Reason in part because they are working on epic rather than user story. And what is an epic? An epic is a user story that is so big in size. As simple as that. So if your user story is so big that you don't finish it up in a sprint, as a Scrum Master, my recommendation is for you to split it and break it down into manageable size. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have for you today. I want to know your thoughts in terms of what do you find so interesting or even disturbing or concerning, or even thoughts about how we do gather requirements in Waterfall as different from Scrum. How have you done it in your team, in your organization? Do you think what the practice with your team is the most encouraging type or approach? Do you think today's content might be able to help you to manage your requirement gathering different from what you've been using or the approach you've been taking in order to gather requirements in order to satisfy your customer? I would love to know what your thoughts are. All you need to do is to put that in the comment section below, or you can even reach out to me and let's have this conversation. Okay? I would love to know what you're thinking, and let's collaborate to make this a wonderful conversation. All right. You are amazing, sticking with me for over 12 minutes now. What a valuable time for us to have this conversation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you again in the next time. I hope you stay well in the meantime. Bye for now.